Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Michele Ogston. Michele is an empowerment and transformational coach. She holds certifications as an intuitive life coach and is a certified meditation and mindfulness teacher. She works with her empath and like-minded people to empower them to break the patterns that have been holding them back to create an authentic life filled with purpose and meaning. Her mission is to spread the word that you are just one decision from changing your whole life. She truly believes life is not about being happy all the time, but about learning how to navigate the more challenging times a little easier. After experiencing her own loss through the death of loved ones and a painful divorce, she decided to turn her pain into passion and helps people navigate life a little easier. In addition to coaching clients one-on-one, Michele is also an executive contributor writer for Brains Magazine. Michele runs the Empath support group, where she provides a safe place for empaths to find camaraderie so they can learn and share with each other. She owns Cloud9 Life Coaching in Northern California, where she lives with her husband, children, and fur babies. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Michele. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you, Dwight. It's lovely to be here. That was quite the introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, Michele, one of the things I talk to about with my guests that I'm a little bit different than other podcasts because people will say, well, what's your backstory? Well, and what's the normal answer you get from people? Well, they talk a little bit about what they've done in their career or their, in the last few years of their lives. For me, though, where does that all start? It starts out with our origin story from when we were children. And one of the things that guided me to want to do this is my fascination with Marvel and the DC universes, as well as Star Wars, where they always start life in the middle. And then years later, they go back to the origin story if it's successful. Well, I don't believe our success starts in the middle. It starts at the beginning when we're younger and we are a product of our environment and what we've learned from when we were children. So can you do me a favor, please, and tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently?
Wow, do we have time for this, Dwight? I mean,
Absolutely.
This might be a long story. Goodness
Absolutely.
gracious.
I've had people go 20, 25 minutes and I'm fine with that. As long as you're willing to share, I'm willing to listen. And I take notes, just so you know.
Okay, get your pen ready.
Okay.
My origin story, it's actually kind of an interesting thought too, to think about going back. I don't know that I've been asked to go all the way back. So you're right. This is the first time I've had to really kind of think about it. I'm usually ready to give my story. I would probably say my origin story is that I was raised both Catholic and Jewish. I had a very religious upbringing that definitely shaped the format for why I'm here today. Not in the positive. I never fit in because if you're Catholic in the Jewish world, you do not fit in. And if you're Jewish in the Catholic world, you do not fit in. So it was never well received in either religious community. And this is not to say that there's anything wrong with organized religion. Just for me, in my experience, it was a really terrible experience for me. I was shunned by nuns and I had to do religious studies. So I was shunned by nuns and the teachers of religions. I was told I was going to hell a lot. I grew up feeling very much like I just did not fit in. I was not a part of the community that rallied around Jesus and love, and we're supposed to include everybody. Oh, but not you. Oh, but you don't fit in because your dad's Jewish. So there was always this very mixed, hypocritical message of, well, we love you if you fit into the mold, but we're not going to love you and you're going to go to hell if you do not fit into the mold. So very, very early on, I felt something was wrong. Not only was something wrong with me, but I definitely felt like an outcast. I just did not fit in. And this shaped me to when I was 16, you're supposed to be confirmed in the Catholic religion when you're 16 to sort of devote yourself to being a Catholic. That was one of my last sacraments there before marriage. And I did not want to be confirmed. It was like pouring acid on me. I was like, this is the worst experience. I was fortunate enough to have a mother who was more open-minded than most people, and she really heard my struggle, and she said, okay, well, let's find something else. I always felt a higher calling to God. I felt like God was actually leading me. I have always felt like God puts me where he needs me the most. And I felt like that from a very early age. So I felt like this was what God wanted me to do. So with that in mind, I went to my first guided visualization when I was 16 and completely changed my life. For the first time in my whole life, I was part of a group of people that accepted all religions. I was with people who were Buddhists. I was with people who worshiped Allah. I was with people who worshiped Jesus. And I was with people who didn't know what they were calling it, but they believed in a higher power. And I felt like, oh my gosh, these are my people. I just completely loved the unity of it. I felt like this is what God is about. This is what a higher power is about, what it doesn't matter what I call it, but the feeling of unity and peace and harmony and inclusive with everybody, not just because of what I believed or what I didn't believe. And from that moment on, I started training on how to be more spiritual and intuitive. I learned how to develop psychic abilities. So I studied from 16 to 24 with the Inner Light Foundation here in Northern California, at Petaluma, California, from a woman named Betty Bethards. She was kind of like my guru, for lack of better words. She is the reason I'm here today. She laid the foundation for me to really understand everybody's perspective, or try to at the very least, and forgive people who maybe aren't as open. And that kind of shaped for how I got here to coaching. That was like probably my first big origin story that kind of carries through the whole segue of why I'm here, dealing with people with mental issues and trauma.
That's a great origin story. I grew up Catholic. I'm still a practicing Catholic, but they're both Catholic. My dad wasn't really connected to, he went to church, but he didn't really, you know what I mean? He was doing like a lot of people in organized religions do. They're just playing a role. Not that he wasn't a good person, but I tell this to people all the time. Just because somebody goes to church doesn't make him a good person. You need to be wary of people that are, that are wolves dressed in sheep's clothing. It's just like standing in a garage doesn't make you a car. Going to church doesn't make you a good person. Mm-hmm. And I've had to deal with this through my years of raising my kids on my own. As a practicing Catholic, took them to church. You talked about sacraments. We'd get to the point where all of a sudden it was easier by the last kid than it was the first kid for them not wanting to go to church. And then me having to let go of that and realize that I have my own faith journey, whether it's through organized religion or just appreciating God on my own outside of an organized religion. That's my choice. So I started letting them make their own choices, and each one of them, as they hit a certain age of teenagers, decided they were what they wanted to do. And I respected that. And as they got older, we talk about it now. None of them
Hmm.
go to church, which is fine. Doesn't make them any less or better of a person. We talk about religion openly, all of us. They each, my one daughter um, has actually gone through and she studied. I challenged her because one of my daughters wanted to be a nun at one time.
Ooh.
She's not anymore. Now she's engaged and married. She's 28 years old, but she was in junior high going into high school. And I challenged her to research religion. So she read I can't think of the name now. The Tord? Is it Tord?
Mm,
Oh, I can't think of. It
okay.
starts with a T. But anyway, she's read many different versions of the Bible in other faiths, right? And joined a youth group where they discussed different religions and went through that stuff. So listening to your story, it's actually quite amazing. Shunned by nuns and teachers. I went when I went to school. When I was in elementary school, I had teachers that were nuns, right? So
Mhm.
um, that was amazing, though, that people would tell you that you're going to hell if you don't fit in. But isn't that society in
Mhm.
general? It still happens to us today.
Absolutely. I mean, part of it was because I wasn't a real Catholic, as I was told. The other part of it was that my parents got divorced, and so which was, against the rules. Um, well, I kind of already thought we were already against the rules since they were Catholic and Jewish, but nobody seemed to care about that part. Um, so it was a combination of things, I think, yes. And even still today, I mean, not so much now. I'm level 46. I'm age 46 now. I don't get it as much. But even, I mean, all the way growing up, it was definitely something that sort of paved a way for me in a sense that you only fit in where you fit in, and you have to be very confident about who you are going into the world. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things is when you really do come into your own of this is who I am, this is what I believe, this is why I operate the way I do and walk with confidence in that. Is there's really nothing like it. It's a beautiful, beautiful feeling of finally really accepting yourself. And I think when you're young, it's harder. I mean, you don't know your place in the world yet. You're experimenting, you're learning, you don't know. I mean, hell seems very scary and real if you're raised religiously. I mean, it's a very real, it's tangible with pictures and, stories. And then you grow up and you realize, maybe that's not true. So the unbecoming of you, I think that happens like in late adolescence, in your 20s, that unbecoming of you, that that transformation, it's obviously life changing because you literally unbecome everything that you were taught and sort of refuel yourself with what you truly, truly believe and what resonates with your soul. And that's, sometimes we see that people don't know what to refuel or re-put in, restock themselves with once they do the unbecoming. Then that lost sort of spiral sometimes can happen if you're not careful.
I love that. I'm becoming of you. But that's so true, right? We grow up trying to fit in. We're told that we have to fit in. We're told how to think. We're told how to walk, talk, and everything in our lives. And then all of a sudden we detach from our parents and we're out in a really a cruel world where everybody's looking at us and judging us. And we let that judgment affect us. And really at the end of the day, the committee of they that I call society has no right to judge, because if they looked at themselves in the mirror and analyzed their own lives under a microscope, they wouldn't like what they see. So they live vicariously through other people's pain and suffering to make their meaningless or, meaningful. Most of them it's meaningless when they're judging us. Their meaningless lives, their judgment of us is because they can't stand what they look at, right? Or what they have interpreted in their lives, or maybe their family or their tribe of people are constantly telling them are not worthy. We get involved in their lives, whether it's through a career, a job, church, or extracurricular stuff that we may do, and all of a sudden now we're thrust into their group of friends or vice versa, and all of a sudden they're looking at us, and then once again we're under another microscope, and life keeps on in that hamster wheel where really, like you said, we have to be empowered to like who we are. And once we like who we are, then that's really when the changes start coming. and we start attracting our like-minded tribes. Like you and I talked before we were recording, some of the groups we belong in. That would have never happened if we weren't confident in who we are. And we don't always have to, in my opinion, be 100% confident in who we are, but confident in where we want to go in the journey, and just accepting the fact that our brokenness can be healed, right, through associations of people. So I really appreciate your origin story, and I really like that unbecoming of you. I'm going to steal that from you.
You can steal that. Yes,
I
you can
really
steal
like
that.
and I liked what you talked about. You know, you didn't want to be confirmed. Your mom supported that. See,
Very
I
lucky.
treat my Catholic faith, and oh goodness, there'll be listeners that have heard me say this in other podcasts. And I talk about the fact of how I treat my faith. People will say, well, if you don't like it, why don't you go somewhere else? Well, part of the problem is when people don't like something, instead of looking at it and saying, this is what I can do differently, they jump from faith to faith, one organized religion to another, or they run away from faith altogether. And really, organized religion was created by humans, right, to control us, right? But it doesn't take away from the fact that I value God, I value Jesus, I consider myself a Christian. Catholic is just a different form of Christianity. And I treat my faith, I have since I was younger, it drives my parents nuts. So mom and dad, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I know you don't like when I say this to people, but I treat my faith like a smorg, like a buffet. And then people will say, well, what do you mean? Well, when do you go to buffet? Do you try everything? Well, sometimes I'll try quite a bit of it. Do you like it all? Well, no. So you just take a little bit of it, don't you? And if you like it, what do? You go back for seconds. So if there's something I don't like, I ain't going back for seconds. I'm not going to ever touch that part of it, of that buffet again. Well, organized religion's the same way. I don't like everything that Catholics stand for. Never have since I was a young kid, and I was an altar server. I sung in youth choir at church. I was very involved. I used to talk to the priests, and all the way up to even going on, I've gone to the Middle East with the church and stuff, and having conversations with people over in Israel about it. And you'll find people that are Catholic or just Christian or Protestant or whatever the case, Muslim, Jewish, that really at the end of the day, people believe in God. They don't believe in the fact of how we're controlled to fear God, because like you said, the imagery of hell, the devil, look what our society does in music and movies and television shows, where they give us an impression that, oh my gosh, you got to spend your whole life so that you make it to heaven. And, or if you're going to do this, you're going to go to hell. Like some of the comments, you mean teachers told going to hell if you don't fit in a mold, like seriously. So that's how I've treated my life. And I still do. I treat it like a smorg, a buffet. And I don't like everything that my faith stands for, my organized religion, but I am smart enough and intellectual enough that I take what I like, I leave what I don't. And those that are talking to me within the church tribe of something that I don't agree with, I just, if it's not a big group, I'll have some I can have a great conversation. Other ones, I just smile and nod my head. I walk away and I agree to disagree. And if it's bad enough, I don't want to be part of their tribe. I will do everything in my power to avoid ever having conversations with them, because the worst thing is to have a conversation with somebody about anything. It doesn't even have to just be religion. And me walking away wishing I never ever talk to them, or I wish I could get that time back, or feel dirty and wish I could go have a shower. All right. So at the end of the day, life evolves and we continually grow our community, our tribe, right? Dwight has a world, Michele has a world. And if our worlds can overlap and we can have some synergy and some commonality, doesn't mean it has to be 100%. It means that we respect one another enough that we're have differing views, and hopefully we never ever say or offend one another so much that tribe has to split up, that our worlds can't connect anymore, that they can't have any commonality. And I work hard on wordsmithing, right? And what I say to people. Because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I've been telling my kids that since they're little. It drives them nuts. Even as adults, we'll have conversations. I'll say, well, how did you say it to them? And they'll tell me, well, Maybe next time try saying it this way. You'll get a different result, right? Try to keep it
Yeah.
really casual. And that's what I do with my coaching clients too, is tell them like, you know what? How did you talk to about it? Oh, I did it through email. Well, number one, that's the worst thing to do. Email, texting, because how do you read the written word? How your 6 inches is feeling at the moment that you read it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you've read the Four Agreements by Don
Yeah.
Miguel Ruiz, be impeccable with your word. It's that philosophy of, words have weight, tones have weight. I'm always having to work on my tone. That's the one thing. I have a very sort of like sarcastic tone to my voice with my kids, and they constantly go, "Are you mad at me?" And I'm, "Oh no, I was just tired." Or, like my tone, I always have to be very vigilant about my tone. But I think that what you're saying is correct. I mean, absolutely, we have to be very careful. I think about the words that we choose, and part of what's wonderful about becoming like very confident and comfortable with yourself is it doesn't matter which tribe you visit, you can still stand in that tribe and be who you are, which I found really sort of healing. I think there was some years there where I didn't know how to relate to people in religion anymore, because I felt almost the opposite of you. I felt more welcomed by society than I did the religious community. So for me, it was like, I could breathe for the first time and just and be accepted by people who I hadn't really felt that before. I mean, these people didn't care that my parents were divorced. They didn't care that I had some trauma in my life. They didn't judge me on any level. It was just like come and join us. And for me to go back then, because my mom is Catholic still, to go back and have to go to church or go, like when there's a funeral, we always usually have Catholic services. And so I always have to make that decision. Am I going to receive communion or not? And I have to go through this kind of torment. There was sort of this uneasiness about going to a different church where, like, I remember the first time I went to a different church and they didn't kneel. I literally looked around for guidance. I was like, what? You guys aren't kneeling? How come we don't kneel? I didn't know that other religions didn't kneel probably till I was 20. I just thought we all kneeled and just got down and had to pray for forgiveness. And so I had to learn this balance of being very confident in who I was, kind of part of the woo-woo tribe over here, and bring that into a very organized sort of religion, and how to not be angry at people who maybe still were judging me, and let that go and be confident in who I was. I mean, I don't visit that tribe as often. It's not my
Of
favorite
course
tribe to
not. Of
visit,
course not.
but I definitely can stand my own now, where I think that takes time to
I know
learn how to do that.
one thing I've had the realization, because there's a group of friends of mine and we can pretty much talk about anything and not be upset at one another. We just have open conversations and we share ideas and stuff. And somebody here recently told me that really the most judgment and negativity and anger and where the devil feeds off is actually within inside the walls of a church. And when you think
Mm.
about it, it's true, because you walk in, maybe not 100% true, but it's got a lot of truth to it. You'll walk into that church and all of a sudden you put up a different, people walk in that I know are complete jackasses, and they put on a facade. Now all of a sudden they're walking in like they're the next incarnation of Jesus, right? And you know what I'm saying? So they come in, they put up a facade, they look at you in judgment of you if your kids are too loud, or maybe you showed up a few minutes late, or you're just, whatever the case may be. And I had to really think about that. And it does happen. There's
Hmm.
more, it doesn't mean that there's not some great people that I go into church, into that tribe, that aren't very welcoming, right from my kids when they were
No,
little all the way up
absolutely.
to adults. But there's so many more people in church that are angry, resentful. They're there, their kids are there, even as adults their kids are there because the parents have made them feel so guilty throughout their childhood, so they're not even there for the right reasons. And it's really an enlightening thing to get to a point in your life, as you had mentioned, where you're okay with your interpretation or your acceptance of anything, and that being religion or it could be whatever. And if your tribe doesn't respect it, then find another tribe, right?
Right. I mean, I think I learned too that really church or any organized anything, it doesn't even have to just be religion, is just a microcosm of society. So to say that there's not people like out in society that you just find in church, it's the same thing. It's just a little small microcosm
Concentrated.
of, yeah. So,
Yeah.
for me, it's like there are some wonderful, absolutely wonderful people that are part of organized religion, and there are some wonderful people outside of organized religion. And I think I
Absolutely.
had to really learn that going, once I sort of graduated from being, okay, I'm not going to be Catholic and actually become my own, let go of the guilt. And if you are Catholic, you deal with a lot of guilt, a lot of
Oh,
guilt,
of course. Well,
so
they
much guilt.
call it
Had to let
the
go of them.
Catholic. They call it Catholic guilt.
Yeah,
People
for a
have
good reason.
teased me. Oh, you're Catholic. Oh, you suffer with Catholic guilt. I said I used to.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
anymore.
a real thing.
It is a
I had
real
to let
thing.
go of that. And I had to really understand that not everybody was out to, I was taking things very personally. They weren't all out to get me. It wasn't this, let's gang up on Michele tribe. It was really just a microcosm of society. There's people there who are going to love me and accept me for who I was. And there was people who were not. And that's just like the real world. So it's just, learning that took some time.
Yeah, it's so true. So appreciate that. That was great. See where the origin takes us?
Yeah, that was great.
Goes
It was
into so
fun.
many different. Well, I've learned so much about people. I find podcasting and doing and talking about the origin story. I've learned so much about even both of ours. Somebody that we both respect and mentors us, Jake Ballantyne. His origin, our discussion was just amazing. I learned so it collapses time frames when people are able
Mhm.
to talk about their youth and where it's brought them to. But I've also had guests tell me off air that it was actually really healing for them because nobody had
Mm,
asked them and they hadn't shared it or really talked about it because some of it it's taboo in their circle or in their
yeah.
tribes. They don't really talk about it. And here I'm asking them to just share what you want. I don't care. Let's talk about it because I want people to accept and like me and want to hear my life story where I
Mhm.
can be genuine and be raw and real. And I know it may hurt some people listening to it, but they're going to love me and accept me no matter what. Right.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
so you are an empowerment and transformational coach. Like the saying we have
Mhm.
all heard in our life states, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? No one really can answer that question except for maybe the creator. However, I'm sure you can add some clarity to this question. I would like to know if one is more important to reach before the other regarding empowerment or transformation, or are they part and parcel and need to be worked on both at the same time?
That is a really good question, Dwight. Like that's the chicken or the egg. I was thinking that. Oh, the chicken or the egg, empowerment or transformation. In my opinion, I think empowerment comes first and then naturally evolves the transformation. So, empowerment has so much to do with self love and self care. And these are all like big, I feel like buzzwords in the coaching and, mental health community. However, when you actually break them down, self love is all about trusting yourself. And so, when you really trust yourself to hold true to your word, it completely puts everything in alignment for you. And then that's when that transformation starts to really happen, where you can trust that you're going to follow through. That is when transformation happens. Where I have seen it the other way, where transformation starts, like let's say somebody's very confident about, oh, I'm on this kick, this is what I'm going to do. But they haven't gone back and really figured out, like, what held you back in the first place? How did you get there? You just started a new transformation, but you don't know why. Like the why is so important in when we get to a transformation. Like that part, I feel like is the glue that kind of holds the transformation in place. Otherwise, what you find is you'll have somebody who changes careers a lot or changes relationships a lot, and they're constantly making these evolutions or transformations, and they don't really know why. And they end up in the same place, which is this sort of like repetitive pattern. You feel very broken. And then that's when that empowerment starts to happen. So at some point, empowerment has to happen to get to that real foundation of transformation
Wow.
on the soul level transformation.
That's great. I like that. Constant evolution without why. that sticks out to me, right? And
Yeah.
how many people
Mhm.
constantly try to evolve and change for those around them, and they forget about themselves. And the reason that kind of strikes me is I think parents are a lot like that. We have children and we constantly evolve to support our children, and we forget about ourselves. We forget about
Mhm.
self-care. We forget about so many different things. And as a single dad, I went through that, right?
Oh,
My whole
yes.
world was revolved around them. Not that that was bad, right?
Right.
But
No.
I was constantly in constant evolution to develop and change and become a better parent, a better dad, more supportive, understanding their faith needs weren't the same as mine. So I was
Mhm.
constantly evolving. And, it took me quite a few years to really say to myself, why am I doing all this stuff? I did, it was more like it was involuntary. I was just doing it because I cared about my family so much. But then I had somebody challenge me, why are you doing all this stuff? It's more than just loving your kids.
Yeah.
And then you look back at your own learned behavior from when you're a child. And then that why kind of popped out for me anyway, not that it'll pop out for everybody. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I like that. The constant evolution without why. That's great.
Well, what I think too, if I can just add to that, is that
Sure, absolutely.
we're constantly a society of how. How do I do this? How can I make this happen? What's going to happen quickest? How can I make that? It's just how. We're very almost obsessed with the how. How do I get transformation? How do I get empowerment? How? It's just a constant question. And not that it's not valid. I think there is a valid reasoning and why you want to understand the how. But I think before the how comes the why. Why are you wanting to make that transformation? What's happening right now in your life that's causing some sort of feeling inside that you're wanting to create transformation? Is it that you're not fulfilled? Is it something from, like you just said, childhood? Is it something from an upbringing? Are you uncomfortable with something? That how almost is like the band-aid for the why. That's wanted
I
to
love
add
that. I
those
love
little
that.
nuggets in there, Dwight.
I love it. You can always add stuff, right? The conversation never has to stop just because I'm ready to go on to something new, right? It doesn't mean that you don't have more value to add, right? And I really appreciate
Thank you.
you understanding that. So, um, you hold certifications as an intuitive life coach and are certified meditation and mindfulness teacher. That is impressive and fantastic
Thank
to
you.
see as you're ensuring you have knowledge and understanding from more than one area of teaching. This makes you, in my opinion, more well rounded and able to relate and serve others more effectively. Can you please tell me exactly what is an intuitive life coach and how mindfulness and meditation helped yourself and what has it done for your clients?
Well, that would almost be a point of origin story, to be completely honest.
Okay,
So
that's
we're gonna
fine.
have to
Yeah,
take it back a little bit again.
sure.
So honestly, part of what happened in this whole experience when I was 16 to 24, I think I mentioned that I
Yep.
was trained as an intuitive. So I really learned how to go inside. I learned what the difference between a thought and a feeling. I learned how to trust myself. I spent years really learning this, mastering this craft, learning how to be psychic, learning how to tap in. Anybody can be psychic. It's like anything else. Like, you just practice and you can be psychic too. I'm not something special. This is just, a skill I have developed. And what I find is that what I found really was that when I was training to be a life coach, they're very obsessed about, niching down, in the life coaching community, they want you to have a specialty. And I could not think of, how was I going to specialize in something? I really wanted to help everyone. I just really, as long as you had a pattern that you were trying to break, that was really what I was drawn towards. And what I found was that when I was working with clients when I first started, was that I would get intuitive feelings about things or people or situations. And there was no way for me to be a coach and not blend the intuitive training that I had in my upbringing. it was almost impossible for me to separate. What I do now is when I work with people, if I'm getting a feeling about something, or I'm getting it like I call it a download, I'm getting a download on somebody, I will ask them permission first. I will say, I'm really picking up on something right here. Would you like me to explore that? Would you like to move on? If somebody is not wanting, me to tap into what's happening for them and getting downloads, I can turn it off. If they want to know more, then I will crank it up. So I have learned, part of my training is I have learned how to tune it in, or to fine tune it. And so that's really how it helps like me with my clients now. As far as meditation and mindfulness has been life-changing in the fact that it has enabled me to be incredibly grounded in a world that is not very grounded. In society, we are go, go, go. Even in COVID, we were still go. Even though it slowed down, I mean, we did slow down quite a bit. We still were thinking about, well, what's next? What's next? When are we going to open up? When's next? When's the vaccine? It was always, this rush. And I sort of touched on a little bit. I did grow up with some trauma, and I have PTSD. And part of what helps me with PTSD is meditation. So I do not have to be on medication. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. But one thing I have learned is that meditation is the key for anxiety and ruminating thoughts, which are thoughts that just play over and over and over in your head, has really helped me. And so if anybody listens and you have PTSD, then you definitely, what happens in these moments is you have a thought, and then that thought takes on a negative form. And then it creates this negative thought pattern where you have, really horrible, horrible thoughts like violence and negativity. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I couldn't figure out, like, I'm such a positive Zen person. Why would I be having these negative, like, self-destructive thoughts? It went against everything that I stood for. And I learned through therapy that I had PTSD from certain situations in my life. And so for me, daily meditation helps me stay very grounded, and it reminds me to be very grateful for everything that I've been through and everything that's happened to me, and that, happens for me instead of to me. And I really focus on that. But I notice if I don't do it, let's say I forget for a few days, oh goodness gracious, like, I'll start overanalyzing things, and I can feel this sort of pattern can happen very quickly if I'm not careful. So for me, meditation, mindfulness, being very connected to right now, we were sort of talking about this before we started recording, is, we aren't guaranteed the future. And so taking these moments that we have now and feeling very grateful, even if I'm not happy. We're not always happy, even if it's a moment like, when you're in that like self-discovery mode, oh man, those phases they can be challenging because it's uncertain, and you're like, it's free falling, you're just kind of, it's free falling through life, and there's no safety net, and you're kind of just hoping you're going to land well. Those moments, that's part of life. We're human. To have a tool that really helps you just stay very present and focused and reminds you that it's going to be okay, to me is it's life-changing in the sense that it gave me like a recipe for life.
I like the fact that you have meditation and gratitude tied together. Um, First time I ever did meditation was actually at that in Zion National Park, at that
Oh,
Namaste event that we went at, and Tony had that as part of the event. He had one of the famous yogi. I can't think of his name. You can actually Google him. He got him to come in for this. It was amazing. I'd never done meditation before. I've practiced gratitude though. I don't get out of bed without practicing gratitude. And then the days where, all of a sudden something's happened and I jump out of bed and I don't do my 20 to 30 minutes of thoughtfulness, or mindfulness, I guess, part of me, and have my gratitude, I feel lost, right? And part of that for me is just appreciating the fact of waking up, even that God
hmm
give me a shot at another day, right? Just stuff like that. So,
yeah,
people take that for granted, right? You don't know what tomorrow is going to hold. So I really appreciate the fact that it just reaffirms to myself and the listeners that meditation helps so many different people, and there's so many avenues for you to start in meditation. But yeah, if you're not into meditation, I hope you're doing some gratitude at least, right? I do it
Well,
throughout the day myself. Even during the day, I'll do it. Something will happen. I'll just stop and I'll think and I'll have gratitude for that happening.
I think, I mean, well, here's two things. One, I think that we have sort of this boxed idea of meditation in society that it has to be a certain way and you have to do it at a certain time and it has to be a certain amount of minutes. And part of what I teach is that meditation is actually very, very open. There's walking meditations, there's running meditations, there's active movement meditation. So a lot of people I think are turned off by meditation because they think, oh, it has to be with like crystals and chanting and, candles in the background.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't. It really has to do with finding that works for you. And I think I always tell people try some different ones out. Maybe you like music and it's a guided meditation. I love guided meditation. Some people can't stand guided meditation. They don't want anyone talking to them during meditation. And that is okay. There's no right or wrong. And we tend to be so judgmental on ourselves of it has to be or it's not right. And perfectionism is an illusion. And this illusion is a trap. And when we can let go that it's not about being perfect, we were created as humans and humans have flaws. So we just have to really keep in movement with what works for us. And I have clients who they don't like to sit still. So for them, like walking meditations and being very mindful of what's around them and oh my gosh, look at the weather today, and for them connecting to that. And I always bring in gratitude because when we work from a place of gratitude, the universe rewards us with more gratitude, more things we can be thankful for, and walking into abundance. And it's a beautiful place. You will find what you focus on, you will get more of.
Oh, of course. And who did I interview here recently? It was live here a couple of months ago. The whole interview was about worry and gratitude,
Mm,
because they can't exist in the same state. People don't
mhm,
realize that, right?
yeah.
And
Hmm.
that was, I think that was the title of the podcast, even. But it fascinates me how little things that we know now today as adults. Could you imagine if we taught our youth that?
Hmm.
They'd even do
Yeah.
well. They'd excel more in school, even.
It actually felt like I succeeded the other day. My daughter, my youngest, she's 12. She came in the other day and she goes, "Oh, mom, I have a headache in my third eye. I need some alone time." I absolutely, literally
That
in that
is
moment thought,
awesome.
I said, "Oh, I think I succeeded." Like I didn't even know what a third eye was until I was much older. So the fact that she knew and like knew the right place, I
Yeah.
took that as a success moment as a parent where I thought, I really truly hope the next few generations, I also have children in their 20s, that I think they're getting it quicker than my generation did. They're so much more fluid with people and accepting than I was raised or in the society that I grew up in. And it's such a beautiful thing to watch unfold, this sort of movement that's happening. It makes me very proud as like a human to see that the way people are accepted these days that we're not when I was still young. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do. We
Yeah.
have a lot of work to do still, but it is beautiful to know that, half of my daughter's friends are in the LGBTQI, I think I is in there now, society. And it's not talked about as a big deal. It's, yeah, so and so, like so and so. And, I mean, it's just like we had peanut butter and jelly today. It's just not a big thing anymore for
But
my youngest.
it shouldn't be a big thing though. And
No.
it's our responsibility as leaders within our own families or around us, no matter who we hang out with, to always consistently evolve. But what most of the adults that children experience are stuck in a rut. They're
Yeah.
living their lives on a hamster wheel. They're living in quiet desperation. They can barely keep their own crap together, let alone set a good example
Yeah.
for their children. So, and then the learned behaviors go on generation to generation. And I applaud you because that is great. I loved hearing that about your daughter. And I
Well,
have,
there's a saying, what we don't release, we recycle. So what we don't release as humans, whether it's emotion or trauma or upbringing, what we don't release, we just recycle. So we keep either recycling it in our own lives, or we recycle it in our children or in our friendships or our relationships. And so that's why it's so important to really not recycle, release all of it.
In order to release, so realization is something that people need to figure out, and they don't know how to, they just don't know how to do it. And I didn't all of a sudden, nor you, wake up one day with an epiphany and know it all. We're a work in project. We've put in the effort. We've taken risk. We've made mistakes. One day we might not analyze that mistake, but maybe in the future we do. Future could be an hour, a week, a month. And the difference between people that are evolving or continuing to climb in life is that they can realize, accept the fact it was a mistake. And like I teach, pivot into a life lesson. And then our life lessons become the wisdom that, wisdom of ages that our society, our children most especially need to learn. So, your 12-year-old daughter talking about the third eye, that's awesome. I love that.
Right. That's a funny story.
How many 12-year-olds? Well, even, like I look at my grandkids and I have conversations with them, and they'll bring up stuff that I know they learned from their mom, and guess who their mom learned it from. Right. So you see yeah. Actually, a book she got from the library. Right. So it's nice to see. It's nice to hear. Right. Obviously there's bad things they learn too. And the difference is, as an adult, we'll talk about things, and the worst adult out there is a person that's not willing to admit that their prior knowledge that they've taught others, whether it be family, friends, clients, colleagues, was wrong. And because they don't want to be thought of as, oh, Dwight, you thought this, or Michele, you thought this before. Yeah, you're right, I did. But now I have different information, and now my viewpoint about this has changed, and now this is what it is. And I have those conversations with my kids. And initially, when I started having them with them when they were younger, and now even more so as adults, they were shocked, because the old version of me back when I was in my 30s, would be like, no, this is the way it is. What Dad? No, it's changed, or there's different information, Dad. And I just, even though I might know that the new information was correct, I was so stuck in my mindset of not wanting people to judge me or criticize me because my viewpoint changed. Well, it's our responsibility for our viewpoint to change in regards to working with others. If what we're continuing to teach is damaging them, and we do it to protect ourselves, we're part of the problem, not part of the solution, right? So
it's an interesting concept too. I mean, parenting is such a trip. I mean, you have 5.
It is.
I mean, I have
4 daughters yet. Don't forget, 4 more girls.
Okay, so I have two daughters that are my own, and then I have 2 stepchildren. I have a daughter and a son. And I can absolutely say, I heard this saying once, that your parents raise you and your children finish raising you. I swear that's true. They teach me so much, where I literally have to go in all the time. Okay, I think I was wrong on that one. Parenting is just that's sometimes just how I explain parenting. It's just quite all right. It's very much true.
It is true. There's so much truth to what you just said. But in order for us to evolve and change, and them to help us through that process, we have to be open-minded, right? And there's so many parents that aren't. They discount and tell their kids, you're better to be. I still hear parents today, you're better to be, seen, not heard. Like, seriously, you're damaging your kids.
That's an old one.
It still comes around. Yeah, I'm half a century, so I'm a little old.
You're not old.
So I'm gonna skip forward here, because
you can. Yeah.
We're gonna have to have we I love this. So when I actually think about doing a second interview, when we aren't even done the first one yet, because I know I won't get through everything that I wanted to.
I'm flattered. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So your mission is to spread the word that you are just one decision from changing your whole life. Is this one decision possible if one has not figured out their purpose?
100%. I mean, this is my opinion. I truly, truly believe you are one decision away from changing your whole life, whether it's for the positive or, for lack of a better word in this moment, negative. And that really stems from like what you touched on in my introduction, which is losing people to death early. I did have somebody very close to me kill themselves, and going through a suicide with somebody I was very close to changed. It's one of the main reasons, next to, like I said in the beginning, oh, Dwight, you're gonna have to get a pen, a lot of pen and paper for my origin story. This is the other part of my origin story, which is his death. It's been 21 years this year. Shaped the foundation for my coaching. In that moment, I didn't know how I was going to help other people, but I knew that I had to do something. I had to create mental health awareness. I had to be there in a capacity. I had to do something. Losing, if any of your listeners are survivors of suicide, for people who have, that they've lost, they'll really relate to this pain. It's a very different pain than other deaths. I also lost a boyfriend at a very young age, in a tragic accident. And it was a very different loss, suicide. And it is the foundation for why I'm here. I really want to break those patterns. And I've mentioned that. And you're one decision away. It really is. I need help. I need a coach. I need a therapist. It's okay to reach out. I need to make a phone call. I need a hug. I'm lonely. It is one decision. This one decision can change everything. And I've seen this. I've seen this one decision this man made, and it changed all of our lives. It changed his life. He's not here anymore. So this one decision completely changed. And depression is a very, very slippery slope, where one day you feel like you're kind of depressed, you're not sure. And then the next day, before you know it, and I watched this happen, you really do think that's the better solution. And speaking from personal experience, before my divorce, I really did get to that place where I had done all the things. I was working out, I was reading, I was, joined the PTA. And from the outside, I looked very, very happy. And I was not. I was absolutely miserable in my marriage. And I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt with that. I didn't have anything, there was nothing wrong. So I felt a lot of guilt in not being happy in my marriage. And I did think, well, maybe everybody would be happy if I wasn't here. And it really was starting to fester, in the sense that that thought was becoming more prevalent in my day. And it wasn't until I dropped my kids off at school. I was very lucky, dropped my kids off at school. I worked from home, and I got home, and the school sent out a mass email that one of the ladies in our PTA had killed herself. And it was in this moment right here that my life paused, and I thought, could that be me? Could I just go and drop my kids off and come home and kill myself? That thought terrified me so much, because one, I had lost somebody to suicide, and two, I knew I had been kind of thinking about what would happen, that I picked up the phone, I got therapy, I made decisions, I did end up getting divorced, and I started really authentically living. But that one decision, whether it be, this man that was very close to me killing himself, or my one moment of saying, it's okay, I need help, that one moment changed everything for me. And he's no longer here, and I'm here. And so for people if you're listening right now and you feel that depressed, you're one decision away. You reach out. There is hope. It will be okay. You can get better. I am living example, and I'm living.
Wow.
Otherwise, you're not living.
That was awesome. You just covered three of the questions after the fact with that. It was awesome. I loved it, because one of the questions was, what was the pivotal point that made you realize you wanted to turn all that pain into passion and help people navigate a little bit easier? Because I myself have experienced so much death in my lifetime, including the death, of my granddaughter a few years ago, who was 4. And I've experienced suicide. One of my best friends from babies, pictures of us together all the way up to adulthood, he committed suicide. And, we didn't realize it, or at least we were so young, it didn't click in. He committed suicide. He would have been 20, 21, somewhere around there. And he was one of my closest childhood friends. And then I've had relatives commit suicide. I had the neighbor up the street commit suicide. I've had so many deaths that I've gone through, because even as an altar server in the Catholic Church, I used to go be a server at funerals. And then my dad's one of 18 kids. My mom's one of 9. The amount of funerals I've been to would blow your mind. So it's shaped me, good and bad. And I know where my pivotal point come to was, appreciating, because of the fact of all the trauma and pain that's left behind when somebody kills themselves, and the survivors and what they go through, how it affected me. And then just people just dying in general. Grief is different from somebody dying from natural causes or committing suicide, right? You would probably agree. It's the grieving process and the guilt, or why wasn't I listening to him? Oh, they tried talking to me here recently and I said I didn't have time, and now all of a sudden they killed themselves. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
it is a real thing. So, and I went through, obviously you're remarried. You had mentioned too that you have stepchildren. I never got remarried, right? I've been divorced for a long time too. That's another conversation altogether, and what divorce does to us, right? And
oh my goodness, we can have another show, Dwight.
Yeah, and the shame,
shows.
and yes, exactly. Oh. Let's do it. The shame that we feel, or that our tribes, our family tribe, our work tribe, our church tribe, or whatever tribe, and how they make us feel shame. And, oh, how can you raise kids on your own? And, oh, I heard it all. Trust me. Right.
I'm sure.
The listeners that want to hear, listeners, if you're curious about it, some of you I know already have. I've been on like a dozen podcasts in the last 6 months, and many of them they ask about we talk about my origin and what I went through as a single dad. Don't be one of those people that are shaming those that are going through separation and divorce. It's already tough enough. Don't make it worse. So anyway,
Absolutely.
I consider myself to be an empath, and took your online test to confirm what many professionals have already told me over the years. It was, however, nice to check out your questionnaire and have confirmation, and I would highly suggest the listeners do that. I personally consider my empathy to be a superpower, and had that confirmed years back by one of my mentors that I mentioned to you earlier, Ed Milet, on a post he has put up, and his response to my comment was priceless. And it was a grounding, he asked what people's superpower, and I was the only person out of thousands of people that commented. Realizing that, you think he has, I don't know, 1 million and some followers, right? So he's kind of a big deal in the inspiration motivational space. And he said I was the first person ever that has ever brought up the fact that empathy is a superpower, and he wondered why, because he completely agreed that empathy is a superpower. And it's been a curse and a blessing for me, to be honest with you. I find empathy can be a curse or a blessing. However, I choose to accept it as a blessing. You work with empaths and like-minded people to empower them to break the patterns and have been holding them back. Your goal for them is to create an authentic life filled with purpose and meaning. Can you explain some of the patterns that you help people break free of, patterns that have been holding them back from their best self?
Yes. So being an empath is actually, the scientific definition for being an empath is you have hypersensitive mirror neurons. So your brain is actually wired a little differently than most people. So your compassion meters, or your compassion neurons, are hypersensitive. So you have the ability to pick up on people's energy just like a drop of a dime. You can just pick up on it. You can usually pick up on the world's energy. You just feel drained a lot of the time. And what ends up happening is when a lot of people don't know that they're empaths until they're much older. Now, again, I've mentioned the younger generations are much more in tune to this kind of stuff than we were, but growing up, we were not told about empaths and, what happens in hypersensitive mirror neurons. That was just like, what are we talking about? So what I found is that when I finally, made the decision to get help and start working on who I was, and even though I had done a ton of spiritual training and I had heard the word empath before, I never made the connection in my own life. And what I found was that being an empath was sort of weaved through my whole life of patterns of decisions that I made that completely did not serve me. So what I find in clients is that, let's take relationships, for example, is that you will tend to attract the same type of people all the time and end up in the same types of relationships because you're an empath. And so you tend to draw in people who need you. You tend to be what's called a codependent. You take on the weight of the world, you feel drained, you end up in not only relationships romantically, but friendships that you feel very used or taken advantage of. You tend to usually choose a career where you're helping people. So you might be a coach, you might be a nurse, you might be a doctor or a vet. Like, you tend to really take on things that you can help. And if you're not careful, because you have these hypersensitive mirror neurons, you feel drained all the time. You feel exhausted. You don't want to socialize. You don't understand why certain things maybe trigger you, like crowds. Crowds are a big one for people. I hear this all the time. People don't feel so drained going to the grocery store, and then they blame themselves and they have a lot of guilt. And this like hamster wheel starts of, well, I have to go to the store and I have to get these things, but I don't want to go to the store. And then the guilt kicks in and, well, now I'm going to go anyways because we need bread, right? And then you go and get the bread. And then while you're in the store, you're picking up on everybody's energy, but you don't know that it's everybody's energy because you don't even know you're an empath. So you leave the store, hating grocery shopping, resenting your family because you need bread. And really, it's because you haven't learned how to protect yourself, how to let go of everybody else's energy, know what your own energy is. A lot of empaths have taken on things their whole lives, and so they're filled up with everybody else's emotions, and so they tip very easily in any direction. So they're easily excited or easily worn out or easily angry. And so much of what we have to learn as empaths is to let go and like release everybody else's emotion instead of keeping, like we were talking about, recycling, instead of recycling not even your own emotions. So it's a lot of processing of how to let go of everybody else's energy, how to know what your own energy is. Sometimes you don't even know what your own energy is because you've just had everybody else's your whole life. This is what we do. We let go.
I've swam in that river for too many years,
It is a wide
especially
river.
with 4 daughters. I was always
Yes.
exhausted because I'd be sitting downstairs and they'd be in their rooms and I could pick up on their energy. They'd come in the door, I'd pick them up from school and, ask them questions. What's wrong? I can tell something's wrong. I can feel you. Like, what's nothing?
Mhm.
Right. Well, now you just confirmed it with your tone, but it was bad. Like, I literally could tell they could be on the second floor, other
Mhm.
part of the house, and I could feel their pain. And yeah, so I appreciate what it is that you brought up about being an empath. I have felt drained. I don't anymore because I've learned so much more about the whole, being an empath. And like you said, we weren't really talked to. It wasn't anybody that brought up those kind of words. Let's say even 20 years ago, people would look
Mhm.
at you like, where are you from? Right?
Oh yeah.
What planet
Oh
are you
yeah.
from? Right. So, you're
Mhm.
right. The younger generations do get it much better, but they're also involved in a society that's, like you said, much more um, open and understanding. Not
Mhm.
necessarily, like as you mentioned, the difference between being an organized religion or society. Society is a lot more tolerant than organized anything, right? You can be
Right.
any organized group, and they're always have their walls that you have to play in their sandbox and stay in your wheelhouse or blah blah blah. You know what? Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it all. But I
Exactly.
really appreciate that. So the last thing I'm gonna ask you is, you have mentioned something called behavior economics. What exactly
Oh,
is that?
Behavior economics. So this is interesting. My husband is also a financial planner. So we talk a lot about this, which is the reason why people do certain things with money. Why do they make certain purchases? Why do they not save? Why do they invest in certain things? There's a whole behavioral study around why people buy or save or how they interact with money. It's a whole relationship. And so he's in the much more practical world like you, and I'm over here in this world. And we talk a lot about how that really plays out in your life and what are the things that happen because of those like baggage, for lack of better words, that we come into our money relationship. And I think I mentioned to you early on that our emotions and is our energy is our emotional currency. So what we give our energy to and what we invest in emotionally is our currency that is not tangible, right? I mean, we see it when we give too much and then we feel exhausted, or we give to the wrong person, who's somebody who didn't respect us, somebody who we knew we kind of had warning signs, but we still went into the relationship because the sex was good or because they were cute, whatever it was, we felt like we should, and then we don't get a return on that investment, and then we're depleted, just like our bank account. So it's like an emotional bank account. So yes, behavioral economics to me is absolutely fascinating. If I could have like 3 majors, I think that would be one of them too. I think I don't have any majors, but I would love one day, maybe I'll have a ton of majors and major in everything. I mean, what do you think about it? Because see, you're in the money side. So what
I
is your
do,
thought
but
on?
I already do what you're talking about in my
Do you?
practice. I have been for 18 years. So yeah, I do more relationship coaching through my finance practice as a financial planner because I'm different, because I understood the differences 18 years ago. So those of you that are listening that are familiar with me, and even my book that's out, How to Win Friends, or pardon me, How to Help People Live Life on Purpose and Not by Accident, was something I
Mm-hmm.
started 18 years ago. And in order to do that, you need to understand how to build relationships. You need to understand how to listen, to goal set, to really appreciate where people's 6 inches are between their ears because they've lived on a hamster wheel. They're living in quiet desperation. All the things that I lived real time became part of my practice so I could help others. And in order for me to do that and help others, I had to set aside the financial portion of it and realize that was the end result of the relationship and the healing that I want to help that single person, that couple, or that business through.
Mm-hmm.
Because even businesses have to worry about the ins and outs of the emotional aspects of their staff, themselves, what they're portraying to their clients. So I do so much more than just finance, right? And again, the listeners understand that have been following me, or some of those listeners or people have known me for 15 years. That's why I decided to rebrand my business to be that bold and brazen, to my
Yeah.
last name being give a heck, because I do give a heck. Yes, I want to help you understand that you can live better. So my elevator pitch that I've been using for now 16 years is I help people live better today, right? To live in comfort, to retire in comfort, and die with dignity. Those are all valid. But if you don't know where you're coming from, your why, your purpose, none of that's going to happen. You're never going to stick to a plan that we're going to put together, ever. So it's imperative that I could pass that off to somebody. And I do pass people that are really terribly, hurting, to counselors, to psychologists and psychiatrists or therapists. But sometimes it's just a general listening to them. Oh, you had a
Mm-hmm.
terrible, what's going on with your parenting? Oh, you're having problems with your ex. Oh, guess what? I've gone through that. Maybe I can help you. Let's talk through it. I've gone to meetings and none of it's been about finance. It's just been about building the relationship. Writing down, I'll write notes down. I have goal sheets and I'll help them figure out where their thought process is at, because people don't normally do that. In my industry, traditional industry, they
Mm-hmm.
suck. They suck because all they are is product sellers. I'm the first to sell. So as a side note, I'm developing a complete coaching program to help financial people be better than they are. because they're good at what they do. They can sell a financial product, they can sell some insurance, but their relationship skills or their compassion or helping level people and lift them up so that they continue to start climbing in life instead of being camped like they've been is horrible. So I'm the first to pick on my industry. I pick on it all the time. And that's why I'm in the process of developing a coaching program specifically for my industry anywhere in the world. It wouldn't matter where you are. I'm not going to
teach you much needed.
Right. I'm not worried about the product side. You do that. You do your product side wherever that is. What I'm interested in teaching you, Mr. Finance Person, is how to build relationships, how to let people know you care about them, right? Because people, like they say this simple saying, people don't care what you know. They want to know how much you care. Once they know you care and that they know that you know, like, and trust them, like Jake would talk about all the time, once you know that, you basically can get past that, help them with their 6 inches, and then the application of the financial process is that much simpler because now they trust you. You trust them. There's a synergy, there's a relationship, and it is not something that's easy. My process from starting with a client till we get to the point of talking about products, I've probably spent 12, 15 hours with them. Right.
And that is like, I hope that's the new way of finance, because I know for my husband too is, like you said, there's so much more that goes on in investing than just where are you going to put your money. There's a lot of the why. What makes that matter to you? Okay, you were raised and maybe you were poor. Maybe your parents died and didn't have any money, and so you had to take care of them. Or maybe you watched your mom suffer. There's so much. And I think when people in finance, and I've only seen this, with my husband, and you're talking about it too, though, so it's being confirmed, is that when you spend time with your clients, really understanding their why and what's happening for them, the synergy that happens for you and your client to be able to say, okay, this is what we're investing in and this is why. And then it's like, then everything kind of molds together of it's all intertwined. They don't just come to you and say, well, I need to invest this. There's a whole why behind that and what happens with that. And so developing a coaching program where people in finance can really have a tangible approach to how to navigate those kind of relationships, I think only makes the relationship with money greater. And it's still kind of a taboo subject in our society. We talk more about sex openly than we talk about money.
Or vacation planning. So it goes from sex to vacation planning, right?
Right. I mean, it's interesting. Yeah. I met with another money coach not too long ago. She's a friend of mine, and she was saying that. She said, it's interesting. We can really talk about so many other things in our life, but still money is still kind of this, we still talk about it behind closed doors. And, there's still some like shame. Like we've talked a lot about shame this episode of, why are you investing in that? Like you have to justify it to people. That doesn't make any sense, but yet we still do it, and I think it's very fast. I think there's going to be a huge evolution coming in finance where you are able to meet with a financial planner who really understands what you're talking about. And like my husband gets this too. Like there is a huge emotional aspect of why you're investing and what you want to do with your life. And if you as a financial planner or investor or a wealth advisor really understands that and can tap into why people are who they are, oh my gosh, the relationship just completely blossoms, just like any relationship, really. I mean, when you think about it, the more you get to know that person and why they behave and why they react, it helps you guide them to the thing that's actually going to resonate with them the best. So kudos to you, Dwight, for recognizing that 18 years ago. Yeah. I mean, you were kind of on the cusp of this.
But
movement.
See, now I'm sick and tired of sitting with new clients that have had such poor service. They may have a product. They don't understand what they have. They've had no goal setting, no plans. The worst is sitting down with somebody in their 60s and then trying to realize and tell them that they can't retire. Right. And them saying, well, why didn't anybody else ever teach me this stuff or educate me or get to know me? I said, well, that's because it wasn't that way. The old patterns and behaviors in the finance industry in North America and the world in general was press hard 3 copies, sell me a product. And I do have
Mhm.
clients that I want to take through what I'm talking about, what I'm actually taking my whole program. I'm actually hired a bunch of people. I'm redeveloping all my workshops that I've used just specifically in the finance world to utilize with finance people so that they can buy my system, use it for their own, right? Once they go through the
Mhm.
training with me
Yeah.
and have and apply it. But our world's been broken in the sense that people just want to buy products. And there's
Mhm.
always going to be people like that. I've had a client here recently that she said to me, and about $500,000 worth of investment money with me. And she said, you know what? We're going elsewhere. And I said, why? Because I get tired of you always asking all these questions and blah, 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 blah. And she said, I just want to be sold. I just want to press hard 3 copies. Whereas the husband completely is different than her. He loved him and I got along great. She was always resistance. And I'm not saying it's a male female thing, just in that
No.
situation, it was her. She was very resistive, very controlling. She dealt with all their money. And he basically said to me, he says, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't want to go anywhere, but she makes all the decisions and I've allowed that. So pretty much there's nothing we can do. So what are we going to do? You're always going to run into people in my industry that don't want to learn how to be a different advisor. And what's going to happen to them is they're going to become like the dinosaurs, extinct.
Well,
Right?
yeah. I mean, it's true. And I mean, just like with any client though, you can have all the magic in the world, and unless they really want to do something, there's not much you can do. So, you know, I hear I'm coaching you right
I'm
now,
looking,
Dwight.
I'm looking for my tribe. All I'm telling people is, you know what? Get good at what you're doing. You help families out. You help them through the tumultuous things they've gone through. You help them evolve, give them hope in a future, help them live better today. They're going to tell others. They'll be around a coffee table conversation. They'll hear stress from family, friends, at work, whatever. And they'll go, you know what? The person we're dealing with doesn't do that. He actually did this, and that. And they'll help create your tribe. So doing it right
Yeah.
is a slow process when you're doing it organically, right?
Hmm. Right. Absolutely. And that's true with anything in life. I mean, you can apply, we're talking specifically about being financial planner, but I mean, you can do that with coaching. You can do that, at the bank that you work at. You can do that with your teacher tribe. I mean, every person has their own little clan or tribe that they feel the most radiant with. And building that, just you have to be patient. It's easy to be patient when you know the time. Like when oh, this is going to take a year and a half to build my tribe, the patience comes very easily. When it's open ended, that's when the universe and God really challenges your definition of patience. This is my experience.
Yeah. Don't look at, just keep on pushing forward. Then results going to come eventually, right? As long as you never
Right.
quit, right?
Right. Keep on
So
keeping on.
exactly. So Michele, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
Giving a heck and never giving up, because I really truly believe that everybody is worth it. And even when you feel like you're not worth it, to give a heck, to feel like something matters. There is always that something matters. And if you cannot find it in that moment, if you're so down on yourself that you cannot find that that's the moment for you to think of something else, to think of your children, to think of your mother, to think of something else that you can give a heck with, to just get you past that moment. Every moment is just that. It's just another moment. And there's another moment right after that.
I love that. Thanks so much. So, while our time is almost up, I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me would either be to join the Facebook group, which is the Empath support group on Facebook, or to actually just email me. It's Michele with one L, so Michele at cloud9, the number 9, so cloud9lifecoaching.com.
I'll make sure it's all in the show notes too.
Great.
Awesome. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Michele. Appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.